Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 72 of the Citrix Session. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. Excited about today's guest and today's blog. It's one of the things that near and dear to the heart of a good Citrix guy, if you've been doing it for a long time, is basically the now I'm drawing a blank, MetaFrame, WinFrame story and the evolution of it, which is Citrix Virtual App and Desktop. Both the on-premises as well as the service. Honestly, 15 minutes ago, I had forgotten what we were doing today, and I was a little overwhelmed because I got so much going on. Then I realized we were having Nitin Sharma on, and this was the topic, and it changed my attitude. So I guess that means I really do like this stuff. Bill Sutton's with us. Bill, how's it going?
Going well, Andy. Can't complain. How about you?
I won't complain. Just awfully busy and a victim of my own desire to keep myself busy, but that's good. So how's the world of consulting going?
It's going fine. We're staying reasonably busy.
No. I got a question for you, and maybe Nitin would want to chime in on this too. So maybe we'll wait till we introduce him. But how has Citrix items as a service, like virtual app and desktop service, how much has that impacted the project phases? In other words, did we go from 5-week projects down to 3-week projects? And maybe hold on that answer, and we'll get Nitin introduced and go from there. Nitin Sharma. Nitin, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Give us your official title.
Yep. So I'm a senior product marketing manager underneath the for workspace services, specifically under the virtual apps and desktops product portfolio.
So you hold the crown jewels of Citrix, right? That's the no matter what Citrix buys next, you'll always be the most important person to us, right?
Yep. Based on customer conversations, the hot topic's always still what's new and what are we coming out with new in virtual apps and desktops.
Right. Yeah. You can be a Citrix guy without that being in your portfolio, but it's kind of hard if it's not part of your story. So Bill, going back to the question I asked you, and maybe Nitin can chime in on what they're seeing. How much is as a service technologies shortened the implementation of a Citrix virtual app and desktop rollout?
It shortens it a little bit. It's not significant because when you think about it, the real meat of a virtual apps and desktops deployment is all around the image, the profiles, the policies, a lot of those elements. And then you add into that, the cloud connectors have got to go in. So it ends up being almost a wash. Maybe a little bit less because you don't have to worry about building SQL, building delivery controllers, building storefront servers, building ADC. If they go gateway, obviously it depends. That's the consultant answer, of course. If they're going on-prem, gateway, and storefront, then it's going to be closer to what we typically see on an on-prem deployment. If they're all into the cloud, including gateway service, then it would be, a considerable amount of hours less in most cases. But again, the meat of those projects is doing the image and all the on-prem stuff that you need to do or cloud stuff that you need to do.
And Bill, if you expand that further into the maintenance side of it, how do you see it impacting the life cycle of a customer and what's required to either do it themselves or work with a consulting firm?
Yeah, it definitely improves the efficiency there because you no longer have to worry about keeping your Windows servers for the delivery controllers and storefront patched and up to date. And if you're offloading ADC to the cloud, then you don't have to worry about keeping firmware up to date on those. That's all handled by Citrix. So now your primary concern is those images. And keeping your cloud connectors up. So yeah, the care and feeding of an environment is certainly a good bit reduced in a cloud scenario.
So Nitin, as the guy who owns that product, what do you think of that answer?
It's just kind of like one of those things where we're kind of, looking at introducing all kinds of features and functionality to kind of help reduce, some of that, the time it takes to kind of get, app and desktop deployed, get users up and running. We're looking at also like as customers going to the cloud, giving them all the tools that they need to, help reduce that time to kind of, we kind of like to use the term to basically get the most value at the shortest amount of time when it comes to deploying app and desktop.
So let's stay on the deployment concept real quick. And I know we're not hitting the blog yet, but Bill, if I were to say, hey, customers got 5 different locations, how does that change the upfront savings of time and efforts?
Significantly. Yeah, because again, you can manage all that from one place. All you're really looking to do there is establish a resource location in all those various locations, and you do that by putting in cloud connectors. You still have to manage the image, but you don't have to worry about all the site design issues that you would for for where the controllers are going to go and where your databases are going to go.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys for entertaining me, my little offshoot there. But I think it really much applies to very much applies to the story around virtual app and desktop service, and some of what we're going to cover here with Nitin and their commitment to constantly making it easier to roll out and easier to maintain while bringing new features in rapidly. And by rapidly, I mean monthly. And that's what we're here to talk about today is the what's new with Citrix virtual apps and desktops, March 2021. And Nitin, I think it's fair to say that the as a service piece of this allows this to be a monthly type of what's new versus what we had in the past, which was every couple years we would get new stuff, right?
Yep. So if folks, I'm sure it's been talked about in previous podcasts, or we were talking about like how our release strategy shifted from just doing something that's every couple of years to we'll do an on-prem release every quarter. We've been pretty good for the past 2 years doing a quarterly on-prem release. And then, the quarterly on-prem release has a lot of the components that we do within our cloud release, which is we do on a monthly cadence. Some features may be specific to cloud because of the fact that just the nature of the type of release or a feature. But when we do these what's new blogs, we do them quarterly, and we sort of do like this wrap up of what came out for our app and desktop cloud service in quarter, as well as what came out with the on-prem VDA. And we're specifically talking about VDA 2103, which is the one that released in mid-March.
So I've been spending a lot of time on this podcast really promoting the as a service, but this is yet more commitment from Citrix to the on-premises solution continuing to move forward as well. And the blog talks about 5 years of doing that quarterly. But it seems like it's even getting the on-premises is now even more than quarterly. It's monthly as well as far as the enhancements.
Yeah, it can be. The on-premises is mostly like you'll see when we're releasing all our VDAs. I mean, obviously we're doing all kinds of fixes and performance improvements. Versus like as you keep moving from VDA, like we're looking at improving RAM utilization, CPU utilization. And then specifically, I mean, I'm sure we'll probably get into like a lot of the cloud features that were released, as well as I can kind of delve into what was in that 2103 release. And we try to make it, do a good job of making it impactful with each release, like as far as new features. But really the main thing is, I mean, with every new current VDA, you're going to get some sort of performance enhancements and just minor tweaks, and maybe it's just kind of under the radar, but a lot of them are just sort of like key customer requests, even though they might sound like very minute, very small enhancements, like the graphic quality status indicator and the quality slider, which I'll kind of touch on. But like that's like one of those things where you're kind of like wondering, what's the big deal about it? But someone requested it, a customer requested it, and it's looking at something that addresses either an end user specific issue or an admin specific request.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's jump into those. So the first one you brought up is the quality slider. Is that in the virtual desktop or on the workspace app side of the equation?
That's under the virtual desktop, but you'll see it in the lower hand sys tray. So we made enhancements to the graphics status indicator, which is something that was released, I think, a few years ago. But what we'd introduce is like sort of a slider. So it was kind of requested from, some like the use case I would think of is, let's say you're a game developer or graphic designer, and you may have a poor connection. So the way that the app and desktop does work is it'll kind of start reducing the image quality to improve the performance of the VDA. But let's say you really need to have a crystal clear image, you can actually you as an end user can just push through and slide it to, I want the crystal clear image. I want to see this clear image regardless of the network connection. There's like a minor drop or something like that. So it gives that little toggle that could either choose between performance or image quality. I mean, this is dependent on the administrator setting it for that user, but it's giving that option for that user. So it sounds very minute, but it's addressing a key use case for, users that are looking at or need that optimal image quality when they're in a
and that's
session.
going to, when it's more precise, you're going to use more bandwidth, and when it's less precise, you're going to use less bandwidth.
That's the way I've kind of understood it, the way it looks. But it's just, it's kind of designed to give the user the ability to get that crystal clear image.
Yeah.
But it could impact the performance of the VDA if they are in that instance where it's a poor network connection.
Yeah. So what'll happen for me is I'll be, a month or 2 months from now, all of a sudden that'll show up in my my company virtual desktop, and I'll remember back to this conversation, think, oh, there it is. And,
is that something you have to turn on by policy, Nitin?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's enabled by default. I think it has to be set up.
Perfect.
So, guys, the next paragraph, and I'm really excited that we're talking about HDX in the first 2 paragraphs. That's what makes Citrix. The second one talks about HDX and the rendezvous proxy. What's that about?
So initially we didn't have proxy support for rendezvous. We've made continuous enhancements to rendezvous proxy support. So it was like one of those things that was requested from the users. We're introducing from what 2103 introduces SOX 5 proxy. So, when you're not using non-transparent proxy network, you can specify either the address of the proxy or the path of the I think I may be mispronouncing this, but it's either PAC file or PAC file. But it's just like there's a number of proxy configurations now you can do with the rendezvous protocol. So you can do like transparent proxies, non-transparent proxies. These were something that was requested when we introduced rendezvous a couple years ago.
And maybe it'd be okay just to recap what rendezvous is just in general, the rendezvous process.
Yeah, so rendezvous, it's a protocol where it allows the HDX, the rendezvous protocol allows the HDX session to bypass the cloud connector to connect directly to the Citrix Gateway service. So if you're App and Desktop Service customer, this is kind of important because what happens is it used to be, like cloud connectors can have a bottleneck, and a lot of times you would have to keep adding cloud connectors, but that introduces a little bit of management, overhead. It can be difficult to manage. So we've introduced the rendezvous protocol to kind of just, where essentially the session bypasses the cloud connector. So if you're because the cloud connectors have a finite number of sessions per connector. So when you start hitting the max per cloud connector, you would want to add more. But let's say now we introduced the rendezvous protocol to just bypass the cloud connector. So you'd have to have, if you're using a number of sessions connecting, you avoid having that issue where you have to keep adding cloud connectors or you're running into a user bottleneck.
And are most people using the rendezvous capability by default, or it's just when the connector gets overloaded?
I think it depends on I've seen it more customers are using it by if you're a larger user base, they're using the rendezvous protocol. If you're using like upwards of 2,000 or 10,000 Citrix connections, smaller shops are probably not. I wouldn't say that they're utilizing that. I don't know if Bill has maybe seen something different. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Well, and then this last one talks about the session recording capabilities. What's being announced there?
So we introduced a number of things on session recording. One of them, I think we mentioned in the blog, which just kind of talks about now we're supporting, you can start putting the session recording database or aspects of session recording within the cloud. We're introducing like session recording, I would say support for AWS RDS database.
Mm-hmm. So, Bill, we've covered a lot there. I think that last one is interesting. You and I have talked about session recording and data management and what could happen there for a bunch of years. What's any of these 3 things you want to dive deeper into?
Yeah, the HDX rendezvous, I think Nitin did ask whether I'd seen a lot of use of it. And I would agree with your assessment, Nitin, that I haven't seen a whole lot of use of this. particularly in the smaller clients. There's some interest on the part of some of the larger clients that we interact with, but some of them are still trying to understand the security ramifications of it. And I think there's some of them have this idea that somehow it's exposing their session host servers, which it's not. So we have to get them over that hump. But beyond that, I haven't really seen much adoption of Rendezvous particularly for the smaller clients.
So the next section jumps into a topic of easy desktops as a service capability. So DaaS, DAAS, for all Citrix virtual app and desktop customers. Nitin, what's this trying to convey to us?
So yeah, we're introducing now customers that are Citrix app and desktop service customers. They have the option to deploy DaaS workloads right from Citrix Cloud. So it's giving admins sort of like new options to offload like IT management to make serving desktops as a service easier than before with a consumption-based model. So we've introduced Citrix Managed Azure. If you're, it's sort of it is what we were talking about with CMD, Citrix Managed Desktops last year, where we've now incorporated the ability for all Citrix service customers to be able to deploy, Azure-based desktops. So it's essentially our true DaaS offering that you can do from app and desktop service. So basically, customers can subscribe to Citrix Managed Azure, leverage to deploy workloads. I've seen it where it's supposed to be 5 clicks and you can get a desktop up and running. So if there's an instance for use cases where you have temporary workers, contract workers, you need to scale up for something like, let's say, your retail, you need to scale up for seasonal workers, but you don't necessarily want to fully commit to full-on DaaS. But you're an existing app and desktop customer, you have the ability to deploy these DaaS workloads straight from your Citrix app and desktop service console.
Yeah. And can you bring your own tenant there, or do you have to use a Citrix tenant for the desktop workloads?
I'd have to follow up on that. I believe you can bring your own tenant.
Yeah, most of the time that's the case with you guys. So I can't imagine it being any different.
Yeah.
Bill, thoughts on the ability to quickly interact with Azure and bring up desktops?
I think this is great, particularly for the smaller customers and some medium-sized customers. Yeah, it's to have basically one bill or 2 bills to manage it.
Yeah, and so as Bill was saying, you basically get 1 bill. It's easy monthly billing. Basically where you could deploy VMs from various Azure locations that we're supporting, like US East, West, West Europe, Australia East. Right. We're constantly looking at adding more, regions to that as we start getting more interest in it. The intent of this is just basically looking at, one, we're working closely with Microsoft, but also, we're supporting various use cases that have seen a huge uptick just through the events of 2020, where I need to have access to give my users access to a virtual desktop instantly instead of having to build out the backend infrastructure, which can take some time.
Right.
So this next one's an interesting topic for me personally, because I got an early look at Citrix Virtual App and Desktop Service probably 6 years ago now, maybe longer. And the first thing that felt kludgy was the fact that the Studio was really just a published web HTML version of Studio. You guys have come a long way with making the Web Studio really the platform of the future. You want to talk to us about this one?
Yeah, so that's you did indicate that we did have a number of feedback of the original, the Web Studio console, especially if you're a Citrix Cloud customer. This was a project that I've watched we have another product marketing manager that's on this. And then I got a chance to see this, where how it's developed and the various feedback that we've gotten from users over the past year when we started building out the new Web Studio. The main feedback that we got is we just need to improve the actual speed of how you can access Web Studio. So this is a full-on web-based console, the way we've introduced it, and I've seen it in action where it's, like when you're going through the various nodes. When we say nodes, it's just basically like for folks, I'm trying to do a good job of visualizing it, but when you're in the Citrix Cloud console, the various nodes are, applications, delivery groups, machine catalogs, administrators. It can take some time in the original web version of it. But we've basically enhanced this, introduced a new UI to make it a lot more snappy. We've seen demo videos where, it can take up to 15 seconds to launch a specific node, whereas this new Web Studio, it's 1 second. It's pretty responsive. We've also introduced a number of new enhancements to it or options within it, like new nodes. And then we're going to continuously improve it. I would say there's things that we're looking at, kind of giving you a little bit of a verbal sneak preview. Or if there's a specific thing that's buried within a menu, we're looking at popping that out. So it'll have its own little node within there. I won't indicate what exactly yet, because I don't know if I'll get in trouble for that.
Well, hey, just a quick, shout out to Citrix, the fact that you were able to use your own technology to solve the web challenge for such a long time, and it really did work. A little slower, but that was pretty impressive, really, for real Citrix guys to see Citrix using their own technology to solve challenges that other customers had around different applications and webifying them. I don't want to make it sound all bad. Watching that thing work and work well enough to solve the problem, that was actually pretty exciting for a Citrix guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did a What's New, me and Alan Fermansky. He's on our team. He's pretty well known in the Citrix community, as well as the user group community, and customers know him. So we did a What's New webinar, and I actually go through a little demo video of how snappy that looks like. I think it's still on demand, so folks are just we go a little bit more in technical depth as far as what's new. I didn't mean to have a shameless plug for my little webinar I did, but
no, that's all right. Now's the time. Do it. Bill, any thoughts on the moving to the web?
Yeah, I've got it. I've got a demo environment that I use pretty frequently to help my team come up to speed or to address issues, and I've been very impressed with the web version of it. It's like you said, it's much snappier than the old version, and it looks like so a lot of the items were in preview, and I see now they're all GA. They don't have the preview notation, but it's a really full-featured management platform, and I'm very, very impressed. So nice job to your team for that.
So the next section here talks about service continuity. Nitin, you want to cover that? You said Alan's name. Now it's stuck in my head. You want to cover what you guys are announcing around service continuity?
Well, actually, it's funny. Alan actually owns this too. So he's one of the guys that are on this. This is actually really... I was really excited about this. This was a project name. It had a different project name we had when I first heard about this a couple years ago. It's basically, from a very high level, it's addressing the concerns that someone may have if there's a cloud platform outage or if there's a connectivity challenge. What it does is we've re-architected the way that a user can connect to their apps and desktops. So the way, if there is a cloud outage, or if there is an instance where they can't connect to a network, the user can still potentially launch some of their apps and virtual apps and virtual desktops, because it's caching their session within their workspace app. So it's very workspace app dependent. And right now we're talking about it in March timeframe. We were in tech preview. So we're actually approaching, and very excited at we're approaching general availability within sometime this quarter. So the key thing about this one, if folks are familiar with localhost cache, how that kind of kept your Citrix session in the event of a connection outage. This is sort of similar to that, but it's supposed to be a little bit more robust when it comes to having access to your apps and desktops if there's an outage. The user, from the end user side of it, they will see a little note at the top of their workspace app, screen saying there's some connected outage. You'll have some limited access. But the intent of this is to ensure that there will still be some type of access. And I've seen it in action in demo form and technical preview. It works pretty seamless from what I've seen, and we've launched like a Word document, typical like Windows-based applications I've seen. So it's designed to be pretty. As more customers are looking at moving to the cloud and they're concerned about what happens if my users can't connect to the internet, this is one of those things that we're looking at to help address that concern.
That's amazing. I mean, the fact that Citrix is really so cloud-centric, but understands that needing to work if and when the platform as a service control plane is down, that just goes back to many, many years of understanding what could happen even on the on-premises piece of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, thoughts?
No, I like this. It's interesting that it caches the details down to the workspace app, correct? Nitin, that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is I haven't tested this, had a chance to test this yet. I think it was a invite only or a opt-in only preview, but I'm looking forward to testing this and having my team test it.
Yep.
Next section here talks about app protection. What are we covering here?
So yeah, we app protection policies is a feature that we introduced for our on-prem customers last year. We're developing it where it's kind of revisit that, where if you're in a Citrix session, you as an administrator can apply these policies, which include there's an anti-screen scraper, anti-keylogging functionality to it. So if you're even in a web, like if you're in a SaaS app that you launched, or a published app or desktop, and you're on an endpoint that happens to have malware installed, like a keylogger or a screen scraper, basically when you're launching in that Citrix session, know that threat actor won't be able to obtain any of that information. So if it's a screen scraper, all they'll get is just sort of a gray screen. If there's a keylogger installed, they'll just get scrambled information. So it's a security feature. When we initially introduced it, is available for on-prem customers only. But the big update that we did in earlier this year was we're now introducing it to our app and desktop service customers.
Yeah, we started implementing that within our own environment. And I had a big customer on the call the other day doing a customer success call. And I said, hey, watch this. I was going to show them how we use Workspace. And because we have app protection policies turned on and I was doing a Teams meeting, my Workspace was blank.
Yeah, that was. I remember when we first introduced this feature, it was really hard to demo virtually because of the security aspect of it. I couldn't just show it over like a GoToMeeting or any sort of like screen sharing thing, because by functionality the thing was being secured, and it actually it was we had to get creative on how to show it.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, anything about app protection being part of the Citrix virtual app and desktop service now that you want to bring up?
No, nothing that you haven't already discussed.
All right. We mentioned session recording a while ago. It's a big part of something Bill and I have been excited about for many, many years. What are you guys announcing here? This is the AWS conversation from earlier.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, the big session recording update. That was the ability to now you can sort of store it in the cloud. There's a number of things that we always do. We updated it with, we did some minor fixes and enhancements to that. But basically, the main thing was now we are introducing the ability to deploy the database on AWS RDS. We've done some playback enhancements. The video that we have in the blog is talking about the new web player. I think that was really more introduced in Q4 of last year. But we were constantly making enhancements to the session recording web player. There's outside of that, that's like the main thing was what we were talking about earlier, where you can deploy it in the cloud now.
So that just kind of makes the conversations around how much storage am I going to need kind of moot, because you're talking about very cost-effective but yet scalable storage.
Yeah. Well, as customers are moving to the cloud, they want to start migrating more components to the cloud. So this gives them that opportunity to that when it comes to their Citrix workloads.
Yeah. Bill, thoughts?
So does this, Nitin, does this still require a Windows server in AWS or Amazon? I'm sorry, or Azure, or is it cloud native now?
I think it still requires a Windows server.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, we've got a few customers using this, and that's what they've had to do. But the web player is something that the database support and the upcoming web player are definitely things that are in the right direction.
So the next section talks about WIM, Workspace Environment Manager or Management. Nitin, you want to try to cover this one?
Yeah, so I will admit that WEM is one of those things that I know a lot of Citrix admins really love, and a lot of aspects of it can get a little bit into the weeds for me, but we're constantly making enhancements to WEM because of the fact that, it's one of those functionalities that, gives more management control of app and desktop. So
we'll give you a pass on that one. I think, and we will cover it, don't get me wrong, but okay. I don't think WIM is something that unless you actually manage an environment, I don't think you ever get to really use it enough to feel comfortable with it unless you actually have an environment. It's one of those, day-to-day management tools.
Yeah. That's partially why I have it's like one of those things I'll read through what's new with it. Yep. And because it's kind of difficult for me to kind of get my hands on a lot of the aspects that come with it. So it's kind of like, I just know, the things that we introduced were contextual filtering for GPOs, which, allows applying GPOs to specific users and sessions with like a, set of criteria and rules. I think the other thing we're doing is profile management support. I think they use configure, like a lot of people use WEM to configure profile management settings within the environment. Right. So now we're introducing that capability within WEM, a lot more profile management support aspects, and then non-domain joined VDAs. So it allows, WEM cloud service to work with VDAs that are not domain joined.
Bill, thoughts on WIM?
Yeah, this we're seeing a lot more use of this and a kind of an uptick in use of WIM by customers, particularly those who are cloud oriented. Obviously, because the WIM management service is in Citrix Cloud, so all they really have to do is deploy the VDA because the agent's now in the VDA. It's just an option to select, so it's pretty easy for a customer to onboard this, even if all they want to do is the CPU and memory management. But we have a consultant who's very keen on this and had a lot of success of it with customers, so much so that I'm actually having him do a presentation for the team today to go over some of these new features as well as WIM generally. So glad to see that WIM is still getting the Citrix love.
So the next section talks about analytics updates. Of course, we need to talk about two things: security analytics and then performance analytics. Let's cover the geofencing comment here.
Yeah, so we're just basically for security analytics. It was the security visibility that you had of your Citrix environment, but we're introducing some sort of actionable aspects of it. So we're introducing geofence user access. So it basically enables security teams to, they can create location-based or policy-driven access. They can create like an allow or deny list based off users based off their locations.
Bill, thoughts on having that element added to the security plays for virtual app and desktop?
Yeah, obviously this helps ensure that we can set rules, could kick off session recording and other things based on users connecting from strange locations.
Yeah, and I think initially, you could maybe see it if a user is accessing, but now there's an actual actionable aspect to it.
Right.
So I went to dinner last night with our exchange student who's from Greece, and he's getting ready to graduate, and I'm trying to help him get into this world of end-user compute. And he started talking about his how frustrated he was by the credit card companies turning off his credit cards because he's booking flights all over the world to go travel after he graduates for a little bit. And I wanted to go into this conversation around analytics with him, but I was like, I'll wait till you know how the basics work.
It's interesting because I think on the credit card example, I wonder if certain banks are taking advantage of that. Like if it sees that you bought a plane ticket or you're at the airport or whatever, and you hop on the flight and you go somewhere, maybe I would assume like banks can do a better job of basically saying, okay, well, he's at the airport, he bought a cup of coffee, so he must be going somewhere. And then, so it doesn't necessarily just turn your credit card off if you land in the destination and you're buying a cup of coffee.
Right. Well, that's interesting because you just took it from a security conversation to a performance conversation where in theory, maybe the bank is trying to help you better understand, or maybe I'm stretching here, but maybe the bank is trying to help you understand things that you might need now that you've landed in the car or wherever it is you've landed. And that's now we talk performance and things that hopefully, in this case, Citrix, but the bank in the other case is doing things to help make your world better.
Yeah, I remember seeing the utopia view of what future banking would be a couple years ago when I used to be part of the vertical marketing team. And it was talking about using all kinds of data and how you can not only improve security, but also improve, that user experience aspect instead of serving up specific, things that like coupons or deals or whatever as based off someone's actionable patterns. And I think as we go forward, similar to what we're kind of going into analytics, the amount of data that is going back and forth, it's like, how do you turn that data into actionable aspects?
Right. How do you turn it into good stuff?
Yeah.
So the first one in here is availability insights. What's this mean?
Yeah. So that's on the performance analytics side. So I guess we've always had the ability to see if VDAs were registered or if they're not, but we didn't offer any sort of insights into the overall availability or unavailability and how that VDA not being available affects the environment. So now admins will get that, that visibility. It's just a data point. They'll get to see, why it's not available and then the corresponding aspects to why it's not.
Bill, thoughts on that one?
No, it'll be interesting to see how that helps customers. I mean, I think there's definitely some benefit here, particularly understanding why.
And then the next one talks about actions. I'm assuming that is actions that the admin can take or actions that can be automated.
So what it's introducing is like within performance analytics, there's an actions like tab or function, I don't know if it's a tab or sort of like a view. Previously, if you wanted to take actions like restarting or putting something in maintenance mode, you'd have to log into Director or Studio and go outside of the analytics console. So we're bringing that into the analytics console. So now you can see all those things like restarting and putting a VDA maintenance mode can be achieved within Citrix Analytics dashboard, including draining users from machines for like maintenance mode.
Okay, and then the final one is executive visibility. Sounds important.
Yeah, I've understood that as we're creating executive focused reports for like search queries. So you can save them and schedule them to be run and then have them emailed if you want to have them, back, get that information outside of the console. So if you're not really logging into the console, you can get all that information emailed back to you.
And the analytics piece is something that we as admins love to have, but it's really great to have that information to be able to share with other people in the organization that don't realize what they're missing if they don't have this stuff enabled and turned on. Bill,
yeah, this has always been tough to get out of Director to get the kind of executive insight. So having the ability to create this certainly benefits us, us admins.
Yeah, and we're constantly making improvements to the analytics aspect because obviously there's a lot more data that's available that App and Desktop does contain. And it's based off, we're getting a number of feedback saying like, hey, why don't you have this thing? This would be great, really great if you had this, or if I had a bit insight on this. So analytics is really a thing, it's a feature that, or product that we're constantly improving to see, what it is that we can, the data that we can take in and present back to you as a Citrix administrator managing your big environment, and how you can ensure that you're proactively ensuring users are always having access, or if they don't have access, why they don't have access, and
right.
the security piece too.
Well, then there's one more thing here. It talks about the availability of the Citrix virtual app and desktop roadmap. What is this?
Yeah, so now we've introduced a single page that you can go to. So sometimes we'll get questions on a number of things like, hey, when are you guys coming out with this? Is this available? So the Citrix virtual app and desktop roadmap will show like, features that we're currently working on. It'll show like if it's in progress or working on it, or if we released it. This page also shows if we're looking at a feature that's in tech preview. So if you're interested in seeing, what it is that we're working on or what's come out, or if something's in tech preview, that page will show, that information, and it's broken out between experience, choice, and security as we normally, break our features out in. Now it's not all encompassing. Obviously, there's a number of features that we can't publicly talk about. So this is just kind of a good snapshot of some of the things that we do want to say is upcoming. And it's a good thing to kind of see the visual as far as like what it is that we're working on.
Right. Well, it's good to see Citrix, like in this podcast, the amount of stuff you guys are improving upon from the legacy pieces all the way up to the latest things with security and performance analytics. And then now you're making it visible for people to kind of track along the way. It's great to see the evolution not stopping.
Yeah, and we do release a number of stuff, so we're trying to make it easier to parse through all that information that we do release. So this is like one of those things where you have like a viewpoint as far as to make it easier to kind of see what's released and what's coming. We've also improved our feature matrices. We used to have our matrices in like four different web pages. It's pretty easy to search. You can just type in Citrix virtual app and desktop feature matrix, and now it's one page. You can filter between what's on-prem and what's cloud, what features are available. So we took the feedback saying you guys have too many. I have to bookmark too many of your matrices or matrices. So yeah, it's now all in one page.
No, that's great. I have spent more time than I care to talk about looking through feature matrix related to products. Bill, I'm sure too.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Bill, before we let Nitin go, anything else on this topic or other things that you would like to bring up here?
No, I just like to see the continuous improvement, and looking forward to what we see in the next 3 months.
Nitin, anything else you'd want to share?
I will say that we have some good stuff coming out in the next current release that we do have. It's actually a number of HDX features that we're introducing, as well as we do get a lot of requests we're seeing a lot more expansive in Linux user base and specific customers. And a lot of times we've had feedback as far as like to meet feature parity with Linux VDA and Windows VDA. And that this upcoming release also does feature some good stuff for the Linux audience out there too.
So is that comment and you said it, the Linux VDA or the Linux Workspace app, or both?
Both, but majority when I was like thinking in my head as far as what's coming out for Linux, it's the VDA stuff, the VDA functionality and enhancements. Yeah,
you guys have been really good about the Linux Workspace app for 5 years now. It's pretty much kept up with Windows almost at every turn.
Yeah, it's just giving customers choice. Instead of if there's a need to move off of, or if there's a need to have a big Linux footprint. It's kind of ensuring that customers have that choice if they need to.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thanks for joining, and we'll do it again in a couple of weeks. Always good to catch up.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.